at 6:04. And let's see, Kathleen, do you still have the opening script at hand, or should I do that?
Kathleen is feeding her baby.
I do not have it at hand. I could find it real quick if you'd like me to.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Of course.
Maybe this is too inconvenient and I should do it.
No. I can. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Sounds like the baby's doing it.
She's trying. Oh gosh, I'm really sorry. Okay, I found it. All right. Good evening and welcome to the Library Advisory Board meeting. We're glad you're here. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. Due to recent changes to Oregon Public Meetings Law, our meetings will now be recorded. Once the video is processed by the city's web team, it will be published on our board's webpage for public viewing. All public attendees are invited to participate in the meeting at the designated opportunities. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question, use the raise hand function on Zoom to indicate so, and we'll unmute your microphone for you to share. You can also use the chat feature at any time or submit a question using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
First item of business will be approval of the minutes from last month. I hope everybody's had a chance to read them. Can I get a motion to approve? Sarah? Okay, and
Yes.
a second. Okay, so Sarah and Sarah. Okay, all in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the minutes have passed. We have acknowledged that Lacey Beatty was elected mayor of Beaverton. I think that's probably about the only thing we can say about the election right now. So we'll move on to other topics, even though I'm sure many of us are very stressed. We appear to have no public forum tonight, no city council report. And I think we're all pretty aware of the latest city news. The contested election, Nadia Hassan was elected to the council seat, the open one. And then I guess it will be January, Glenn, do you know, or Kristin?
Yes.
We'll
Yes,
be
in
voting on the replacement for Lacey.
Oh, as far as the replacement for Councilor Beatty's seat, I'm not exactly sure, now that you mention it, but I'll find out.
And again, I think that's probably all we want to say right now. We'll move on to the partner reports, starting with the foundation report.
Okay, thank you, John. Foundation report is very brief tonight because tonight is normally the foundation's meeting. They were very happy to cede their slot to the Library Advisory Board. Right now, their efforts are focused on the fall appeal letter, which is, I believe, ready to go. So hopefully that will be going out within the coming week or two. And still focusing on the purchase or acquisition of a bookmobile. City has identified a fleet vehicle that is being decommissioned that the library could use. So we need to have some internal discussions first to see if that's something that the library would be interested in taking advantage of, given that, as I recently learned, and Kristin probably knew this before my time, that we apparently had a library bookmobile van previously, and there was some issues with the size and length of the van in terms of its ability for staff to successfully maneuver it, drive it, and as a result of which the library ended up downsizing to the current library and wheels vehicle, which is pretty much a subcompact car. So we need to have some internal conversations to find out if we have someone who could, as they say, literally drive the bus, if we were to take advantage of this vehicle that the city's fleet department is willing to make available to us. That said, it would require some customization. In its past life, it was used as a police department radar vehicle. And so it would require some modifications to make it usable for library purposes. But that said, it'd be a lot less expensive to customize an existing vehicle at no cost that we received at no cost rather than to purchase a brand new vehicle or even a used one. So that's the latest information about the foundation.
Well, having worked for a school bus company for a brief period, I can tell you that whoever drives it will actually need to have a CDL, a commercial driver's license. And they aren't easy things to drive. I remember one morning on my way into work, walking through the parking lot, I noticed one of the cars had a bumper sticker that said, "My other car is a school bus." So maybe somebody would need one that says, "My other car is a bookmobile." We'll move on to the Friends report. Kathleen?
I'm sorry, I just had one question about that. Who would insure that
sure.
van? Would that be the library or the city?
The city has insurance coverage for all of its fleet vehicles, and this would just be extended. I mean, we currently have 2 fleet vehicles at the library, 2 or 3 actually. Kristin, does the branch have its own fleet vehicle in addition to the 2 that we have? So it's actually a total of 3.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. And they're all covered under the city's insurance policy for all of its fleet vehicles.
Great.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the Friends, or are there any other questions? Okay, Kathleen?
All righty. So the Friends had a pretty eventful meeting last month. They had 4 new prospective board members. So their search brought in quite a few people that were interested. And so they voted to expand change the bylaws to expand the board. Currently, their bylaws said that they could only have 7, so I think they expanded that to 11 potential members, so they could get all 4 new people. There are 2 of the board members that are leaving at the end of the year, and so there are going to be 2 vacancies, so they're pursuing 2 additional board members so they can fill up the entire board. So it was a good meeting for me because they went through everything that they do very, very in depth, which was a kind of a belated introduction to how they look at quite a few things for me. So we went really in depth of the profit and loss statement, how they're structured in the bylaws. We all got a copy of the bylaws, which were, well, not interesting, but worthwhile to go through. And besides that, their big concern right now is space. So they were hoping to move into the Griffith building since the police moved to the new public safety building, but because it's a secure location that would require badges or passes, that the city thought it unlikely to work to use that space for book storage. So they're really trying to figure out, if the sale goes through of the current location where they are, where are they going to put all the books? And they're exploring commercial opportunities. They're looking at the library, trying to figure out where in the library there might be space. So that's kind of their big focus right now, is figuring out where they're going to put everything. Yes, Glenn.
I just have something to add to what you mentioned, Kathleen, with respect to storage space. And I think maybe I have shared this information with this board in the past, and if not, I apologize. But as part of the feasibility study that we commissioned, pre-pandemic, prehistoric times, to explore the possibility of integrating the Friends retail operation to the back of the house of the library. Long story short, it wasn't feasible to incorporate the entire operation, so we came up with an alternate plan, which involves expanding the retail operation inside the library to extend it along the wall where the 2 bookshelves currently are to that built-in wooden bookshelf, and then also space in the cutout section of the lobby. Then in the back of the house, we have identified space for shared processing for the Friends as well as the library staff, and additional storage space for some of their excess inventory in the loading dock area. So that will provide some additional storage space for their inventory, but of course not all. And so that's why they had approached City inquiring if the Griffith building would be a possibility for additional storage space and or office space. And as Kathleen, as you reported, the city informed them that that unfortunately wasn't possible, that space at Griffith, which by the way is very much in high demand, as you can imagine. The other thing too is the city gets approached, as you can imagine, by a lot of local community organizations with requests for space. So the city is trying to take an approach that's perhaps a bit more fair or equitable than they have done in the past in terms of providing space for one group over another. And so that said, there's an increased competition for a decreasing amount of space available for these groups. And so there are a variety of factors. And so, but at the end of the day is we've come up with a plan to provide some additional storage space in the back of the house of the library. But unfortunately, it's not going to be, we just don't have the capacity to provide space for their entire inventory. So hence
They have a large inventory.
Yeah, the search continues.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Glenn.
Uh-huh.
Any questions?
Okay, Arvin, welcome to our meeting. First of all, we're glad to have you here. Since this is your first meeting, we wanted to make sure you didn't have to do the first of the partner reports. That's why we did the foundation report and the Friends reports first, just to give you an idea of what they're like, make you a little more comfortable. But we'll move on to the Teen Library Council report, and whatever you have to tell us. Maybe you want to introduce yourself first. Are you in a gaming chair, by the way?
Yes, it's gaming chair. I've been with the TLC for 3 years now, and just started leading this year. So for the TLC, we've been doing like virtual, like the contest for prizes for like the TLC, the Teen Art Show, and that started today, November 4th, going until November 18th. And yeah, that can be accessed for 2 weeks virtually. And then also we're starting to do game nights and book clubs for the TLC members. That's basically just for them to interact and have fun, and also just to, sometimes we have problems with podcasts as some people just don't know each other or can't really talk about too many things because of the virtual Zoom, and it's a little hard. And so we've been doing game nights, and then we're going to start a book club. I think we're thinking about doing that in December. And then we will do book clubs. Yeah. And then I think the last thing is we're having like a volunteer come in from the Peace Corps. I think Alicia has connections with the Peace Corps. And so we're having them, I think it's Nick Wabrock. And he's been volunteering from 2007, 2009, where he worked on water and sanitation projects. So he'll be sharing some pictures and stories and talking about water and sanitation, especially being a large issue during COVID. And then for podcasts, we recently published one, I think 2 weeks ago. And we've just been keep on going with it, making it more themed for fall or winter, and discussing different books, trying to make like segments so we can talk about maybe books and movies every single time. And then we've been reflecting what's going on in the world and staying away from politics and other sensitive topics.
Smart.
It's very good. Good report for a first report. Excellent. Anybody have any questions for Arvin?
I do. Arvin, how did the number of entries for the teen art contest compare this year with previous years? Do you have any sense of that?
I
Are they about
don't.
the same?
I can expect that it's less, I would guess. But because it's virtual, and also I think they only let you do one art piece instead of the two last year. So I would guess
Right.
it's less, but I don't know. Probably check, but
Yeah.
I'll put that in my notes.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Where's the link? Is that in any, I guess it was in the city newsletter probably, but is it in anything else?
Yes,
Do we have it
John,
on
in
the library website?
Library's website, if you go to our events calendar for the month of November 4th through the 18th, you'll see the entry there and there'll be a link.
Okay, good. Yeah. I don't think I've missed one of the shows. They're always so entertaining. Quality of the work is incredible. And being able to do it at home is not too big a loss for that, I don't think.
I'm
Sarah?
curious.
How do you conduct the
Sorry.
book clubs? So within the board members, you conduct the book clubs, or it's open
Within-
to all the teams?
Within the TLC.
Okay.
So we're
Thank
thinking
you.
of just doing different book clubs just to discuss, also connecting different people.
Thank you.
I had a question. I'm just curious, what are you guys doing on the game nights?
I think they just had a game night I think just 1 or 2 hours ago. We were just playing like Among Us and and some other different games. I think they were gonna do Drawful too. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I haven't heard that one, but Among Us is a blast. I've been playing that with my friends from Illinois.
Yeah.
I wanted to possibly suggest catchphrase. This seems silly, but this is
Oh, I
something
love
that
that.
yeah, so like my boss has been facilitating this catchphrase where you would basically assign teams. So this is something that the teens could do. But you have one person who facilitates and they will message the word that this person is supposed to explain to his team. So it's basically Pictionary, but you're supposed to describe the word without using the actual word, and your team has to guess it. So if the word is dog, you would just say like man's best friend barks a lot, and that your team has to guess dog and gets points assigned. So the person who's facilitating will send the word to each team and count the points on a timer. And we've been having an absolute blast doing that. So it's just something to think about. I would suggest looking into it.
I'll put that in.
Yeah, there's all kinds of like random list generators that you can use to come up with themes or topics, but it's been really fun, and I think it's something easy to do virtual.
There's two versions. One's just a board game type version, and one's electronic where you pass something around, which obviously you can't do on Zoom, but that is a lot of fun. I'm sorry to be so full of jokes tonight, but I have to share this. As we were having a family game of catchphrase some years ago. My mother-in-law is a sweet little old lady, and the word I had was briefs. Now, Brad, I'm sure, would be thinking of legal briefs, but the clue I gave was another name for men's other underwear. And my mother-in-law said, depends. True story. It's just all perspective, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, we'll move on. Any other questions for Arvin or comments? Good, thanks. That was a good report. We're going to move on to the exclusion matrix. I guess you have something new for us. We last discussed that, what, about a year ago?
20 years ago, before the...
It was a long time ago. So, John, if you like, I'd be happy to pull it up on the screen for everyone.
Sure.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. And here we go. Okay, can you all see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, let me scroll to the top. All righty. So there's 2 pages, the first of which is the levels on the left-hand side, the rules in the middle, and the matrix first, second, third offense. And then the second page, oops, I'm sorry, that was the second page. Forgive me. Hold on 1 second, please. There we go. That's the first page. Okay, so the first page looks like this. The notice of exclusion, etc., violated rules for use. It's just basically the rules for use restated. And then the second page is the actual matrix itself. And let's go back there. And this version, which I'm sharing, is the one that incorporates the suggestions made by this board the last time they reviewed the matrix, which I want to say was probably sometime in 2019. So that by way of background. So John, I turn it back over to you as far as how you'd like to proceed.
Are there changes by the management team since we last reviewed it then?
Not to my knowledge, no. Only insofar as this version incorporates the suggested changes by this board. So I thought we would start there first, since it's been a while, go back over them. And I apologize, I don't have the document on hand that identified the changes, the suggested changes. But my understanding is that this version does incorporate those changes. I thought that as a starting point, the board might want to just do one more quick review. And if it looks good at that point, we could share it with the management team and get their thoughts and hopefully reach a consensus, and then send it on to the city attorney's office for the final review before incorporating the changes into the new version.
Len, is there a reset period? Like, let's say you sell something and get a warning. Is there an amount of time before you come back and let's say do it again? Or is it second offense going to happen even if it was a year later?
So typically, let's see, and that would be, do you recall what number that is, Andrew?
Yeah, it's 8. It's any of the ones in that first category where you start with a warning.
Right. So, yeah, typically, to my knowledge, and Kristin, jump in here because I know you have quite a bit of experience in enforcing these rules, is that, let's say in the event that we notice that someone is selling something. So typically, we'll just issue a warning or a reminder that I'm sorry, but that's not allowed in the library. But we won't keep a record of that because it's just a warning. It will only be written. There'll only be a written record in the event that we actually have to. Typically, in the event that we have to exclude someone, for example, if it were a second offense for one day. But that said, that begs the question: how do we know that it's a second offense? So that might be the case where, let's say, 2 offenses on the same day. Let's say, for example, we notice someone selling something. We go over to them and we issue them a warning, a reminder. I'm sorry, but that's not allowed here. And then later that same day, could be an hour later or whatnot, we notice that same individual, selling or attempting to sell an item. At that point, we would go over to the person and say, sorry, you're gonna have to leave for the day. And at that point, we would do a write-up. And so, Kristin, do you have a recollection of how else that type of scenario might occur? whereas we
Yeah.
would have, please go ahead.
I think you kind of covered it. I mean, staff will often, when staff give a warning, they'll like tell everybody in their work group, like, hey, just so you know, I gave this person a warning. So even if it isn't written up, like staff are cognizant of if it continues to happen, like, hey, you've been warned. I know you've been warned. That might get the exclusion to a day. The staff is, it's amazing how they keep kind of tabs on what's happening and communicate with each other about things like that. Like, keep an eye on this person. Yeah.
More of what I was getting at was, let's say that it's a second offense, they got a day, and then a year goes by and they do it again. Is there a, oh, this is now your third offense, even though it's been a year since the last time you did it? I was just wondering if there was a cooling off period of, it's been a year since you did anything, we're going to drop you back down to your slate is clean, let's move on and start from scratch.
Yeah, I feel like in that case, staff would be kind of like, hey, it's been a while since you've been in here. We appreciate that, but you know this happened a year ago. So it might not drop just, yeah, they probably would be like, it's a warning. And the next time you do it, it would go up to maybe even longer than a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it just a verbal warning?
Yes, the warnings are verbal in nature. And that said, Kristin, can you correct me if I'm mistaken, but that I think we keep these IRs, the incident reports, for up to a 3-year period?
I think that's right. Yeah. And staff knows how to search them, and yeah.
Yeah. So that said, Andrew, it sounds as if we have sort of a 3-year statute of limitations, so to speak, for these types of things.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Sorry, I didn't phrase the question properly.
No, that's fine. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, just how long does it stay on their record before they have a clean slate again?
Yeah, and that also presupposes, of course, that we know who the patron is so that we can look them up. And sometimes it's the case where we don't know who they are and they refuse to provide us their name. So we'll do a write-up and we'll provide a written description of them. You know, but that makes it a little harder then to try to find and search for and find that person if there's a repeat. But, you know, we do the best that we can.
Oh, with the building monitors now, are they doing most of this work at this point?
Not necessarily. They're assisting the librarians in this effort, but their role is not to take on this work exclusively, but rather there to support the staff in enforcing the rules. And that said, I think I shared this with the board that since the hiring of the building monitors, the number of incidents has actually decreased by close to 50%, just by their very presence. You know, they're constantly walking around the building, getting to know people, and that's really gone a long ways towards just reducing the overall number of incidents. We were frankly shocked to see how much of a decrease there was. We anticipated there would be a decrease, but I think it's owing to the credit to the folks that we hired that they've done such a good job of establishing relationships with folks that that the numbers have decreased much more than we had anticipated.
Well, board members, what would you like to do here? Would you like to review copies of this on your own time or take a closer look at it now, or how would you like?
Could you scroll to the bottom?
Sure. Oh, there is one exception, of course, for category 5, where the typical sort of 3-year statute of limitation doesn't apply. In those cases where someone has been issued a, referred to as a permanent exclusion or a 2099. Just by its very nature, given the severity of the offense, fortunately, we don't have to give those out very often. but that's a separate category apart from the others, because as I said, it really doesn't have a statute of limitations. It's a permanent exclusion. And those are extreme cases.
I think that item needs some clarification that I don't remember seeing before. Touching one's sex organs through clothing, that's kind of unclear. I think we need more specific wording to indicate. I'm guessing that means somebody else's sex organs as opposed to their own, or would it mean either?
My understanding is it's a reference to someone touching themselves. That said, if they touch someone else, that would constitute a similar, that's an offense that, again, I'm not a police officer, but that would fall into the category of a sexual assault, I believe, and might actually be even more severe. But I think the intent behind this wording, this language is, and we could change that, John, to your point, to one's own sex organs through the clothing.
Yeah, I think if that's the intent, it needs to say that so that it is clear.
Yep.
And even then, I wonder if, I hate to use this word in this context, but if we need to be more explicit to make it clear that, you know, certainly that there's some sexual intent, I think, would be.
Well, I'm not sure that we want to, you know, try to determine someone's intent. I think it's more about the behavior that we're looking at, because it's really hard to get at intent. But what we're looking at is the actual behavior as described in, you know, the ORS 167, etc., which I don't have off the top of my head, but I believe it's there. It's a description of the behavior, and so it's in keeping with the behavior as described by the law.
I think that's pretty clear that if sex organs are involved, then call the police. That's what I get out of that.
Yes, that's speaking of intent. I mean, that's the intent. So it's if we notice that behavior, that would trigger an automatic call to the police, and a exclusion of a year or more, up to, depending on the nature of the offense and how often it occurred, potentially a permanent exclusion. And Kristin, is there anything that you'd like to add to this, given your experience as a reference librarian?
No, other than like on the rare occasions that we have excluded somebody for, you know, until 2099, if we see them on the premises, we immediately call the police. So that's like a staff protection and policy that works really well. So, and you know, we have a list of people who have been excluded like that. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which is so wonderful. I think since the building monitors since we had the building monitors on the floor. But yeah, I think the matrix, as a staff member, I think the matrix worked really well and would be helpful in those situations where you were like, what do I do? You had this thing to refer to so everyone could be on the same page, and it's very useful.
Yeah, and also helps us to be consistent in how we apply the rules, which is also obviously very important.
Have we had much of this incidents, Kristin?
Unfortunately, not much, but yeah, it had this particular number 5 has come up twice that I can think of in recent memory. So yeah,
Enough for it to be an item, which is disappointing.
Fortunately,
yeah, and I think most of those incidents, if I'm not mistaken, Kristin, correct me if I'm wrong about this, tend to occur in our computer area with folks, you know, viewing content that would tend to trigger this type of behavior?
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons why we have the computers in a public area that's very visible, to try to discourage, you know, that practice.
Okay, going back to my previous question, do you feel like you need to review this carefully, or are we satisfied to pass it back on?
Just a reminder for the board is that this would be at least the second time the board has reviewed this document. So just, I know it's been a while and it may look new, but the board has reviewed it in the past. So if that helps.
Number 2 on that, was that the one we were just looking at before you scrolled it down? Yeah, okay, I gotcha.
Yes.
From my standpoint, I'm okay with it.
Meaning from a legal standpoint or a personal standpoint?
Well, personal, you know, I mean, I'm all right to send it off to what's the next step, library staff for their additional input, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be willing to pass it on as well.
The library's okay with it.
Okay,
then.
me too. Does anybody else feel like you need more time with this?
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll consider that accomplished.
Yay.
We have again reviewed the exclusion matrix, and it includes one minor change, and we pass it back to the management team. And
Great.
We'll see it one
Thank you
more
very
time,
much.
I guess.
Let you know when
So
we have
we'll move on to the.
just one more thing, John, I was going to say, let you know when we have it's been approved by the city attorney, then we can make it go live. So thank you very much.
Okay.
We really appreciate this board taking the time to review it and offer suggestions.
We'll move on to the director's report then.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. All right, and now onto the director's report. Okay. John, do you want to talk about the recommended applicants for the alternate position?
I did that last month.
Oh, okay. I was just going to mention, did we mention last month that we sent them on to the back to the boards and liaison, boards and commissions folks to pass on to the
Yes.
mayor? We did. Okay.
Yes.
Apologies for that. So we hope to hear back regarding the mayor's decision, I believe later this month or early next month. And then from there, assuming that the mayor approves, they go on to city council for ratification. And that typically happens in December. So stay tuned on that. County elections update. I'm very proud to say that we had ballot boxes, 3 ballot boxes within our 2 library locations. The newest of which is the permanent ballot box that was installed by the county. The design of which was approved by library staff, I might add. Along Hull Boulevard on the west side, just south of 3rd Street. And I can tell you that yesterday there was a bit of a traffic backup as folks were slowing down to drop off their ballots. It was great to see. And then also in front of both, yesterday in front of both library locations, the Murray Shoals branch had a ballot box in front staffed by library staff and volunteers since October 30th. And yesterday we had another ballot box in front of the main library through right up until the deadline of 8 p.m. And our own Kristin Fidler was one of the staff who volunteered to help staff the ballot box. So kudos to her and the other staff who did that. We did that along with several other WCCLS member libraries. And providing ballot boxes in front of our respective locations, staffed by, library staff and volunteers. In spite of the fact that our buildings may have been closed to the public, we still made that service available. And in spite of that, we still were receiving ballots in our book drops. I don't have the exact number, but staff were on the lookout for them through last night. And we made sure that any and all such ballots were delivered to the county elections office as they should have been. So very proud of the library's efforts to help support get out the vote and making sure that the votes were delivered properly and on time. As John mentioned, we have a new mayor-elect Councilor Beatty, who is also a liaison to this board. So congratulations to her. And we, as John mentioned, we have some new councilors who will be starting January 1st. And then I have an action item to get back to the board with some information on when Councilor Beatty's seat will be up for election. That said, also January 1st, the new city charter goes into effect. We go from a strong mayor form of government, the only such form of government left, municipal government left in the state of Oregon, and moving to a council manager form of government, and whereby the mayor becomes no longer is the chief executive officer of the city, but becomes a voting member of the board, the city council rather, and a regular employee of the city. And the chief administrative officer will become the city manager. And according to the charter, that position needs to be filled by January 1st. So we're next week we'll be interviewing candidates for what we're calling the interim city manager position, which will be up to a 6-month assignment from January 1st through June 30th, although that could end sooner. And then next month, the fun begins again, and we go out to look. The new city council will lead the effort to hire a permanent city manager. The reason why the decision was made to hire an interim city manager was because the current city council did not want to make that decision knowing that there would be a new board that would be seated in January. So they decided to hire an interim manager and let the new city council undertake the hiring of a permanent city manager beginning in February. So stay tuned on that. I'm also proud to say that the Beaverton City Library's Oregon Public Library Statistical Report was submitted on time by the October 31st deadline. Even in spite of the fact there were some new categories this year, thanks to the pandemic, new data that the state was capturing. And in spite of that, and thanks to also some data that was provided, additional data provided by the County Library Cooperative, helped make that process, in spite of the changes, a smooth one. And a special shout out goes to the library manager, Michelle Caldwell, our materials and operations manager, who took the lead on that with assistance from Kristin. So thanks to both of them for making sure that the report was completed and submitted on time. Moving on to programs and services, I'm also proud to say that our this year's One Book, One Beaverton title, which was recently announced, is Just Mercy, Story of Justice and Redemption by Brian Stevenson, which is a memoir of Mr. Stevenson's work as an activist lawyer representing low-income clients in the Deep South, many of whom are on death row or facing life sentences. The author is also the co-founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, which works to end mass incarceration, excessive punishment, and racial inequality. The book has been described as, quote, a powerful true story about the potential for mercy to redeem us and a clarion call to fix our broken system of justice. One of the most brilliant and influential lawyers of our time. So we'll be giving away free copies of the book, I think about 400 copies of that book a week this Saturday. So it'll be Saturday the 14th in front of the library from 11 to 3 o'clock. So we hope that members of this board will be able to join us. Unfortunately, due to the nature of this year's event during a pandemic, there will not be cake served. So I'm sorry to say that. So it's a sort of bring your own cake event, but we will have free copies of the book to give out. There will be other programs and events, however, happening just as in previous years, and all those, I believe, will be virtual. So information about those programs and events will be forthcoming, including a flyer describing those events and information available on the library's website. So check the library's events calendar for information about upcoming programs and events related to that. Arvin mentioned the Teen Art Show, which is virtual this year through November 18th. So we'll hope that this board will take the time to check out that event and share the excitement with other members of the community. And other programs are ongoing, virtual capacity, including our book group at the branch, and our Age Cafe event in conjunction with the county, story time 6 or 7 times a week, both in English and in Spanish, book chat happy hours, song circles, facilitated by our very own Kristin. And that's been ongoing now since the start of the pandemic and attracting, what is it, about 25 or 30 strong each week, Kristin?
Yes, and still they come. Yes, it's been great. So
That's
fun.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's become a weekly event and still going strong. All kinds of team programs, as Arvin described. Death Cafe is back on the air again, this time virtual. I know that some members of this board have attended those events in the past. So we have one coming up on November 17th. So be on the lookout for that. Crafting programs, STEM programs, all kinds of stuff that's happening virtually and continues to be well attended. Reopening plans and activities. Early today, as we talked about informally before the official start of today's meeting, we held a pilot test event in the main library. We invited library volunteers to participate and be our test patrons this afternoon between 3 and 5 o'clock. We admitted up to 12 people at a time and let them loose in the library to browse books, pick up holds, interact with staff. And I was present or on site recording feedback from patrons and also helping to greet people. And the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. And that said, we did get some helpful suggestions about making improvements to signage and things of that nature. And the excitement was palpable, having people back in the building, and they were thrilled and excited, as were the staff, to see staff back in the building. And there was, I'm proud to say there were no hitches. The staff did a really great job of preparing for the event and planning for the event. We had staff at the door screening folks prior to coming in and reminding them of all the safety protocols and the fact that it was visits were limited to 30 minutes. Everyone was very cooperative, and the folks lined up outside, were socially distancing themselves without any prodding. So I'm proud to say that our Beaverton residents rose to the occasion and have continued to do so. Those who showed up not only to be part of the test, but also those who were on hand to pick up books that they had placed on reserve, because that's now moved to the front of the building. And those who've scheduled appointments continue to do so at curbside. Computer lab was also going on today. It was bustling activity in the lobby. We had folks picking up holds. We had folks coming into the library as part of the test, and we had folks coming into the library to use the computer lab and bathrooms. And so it was a lot of activity, but that said, everyone was able to maintain, safe distancing, and apart from, passing one another just briefly to do so. And proud to say that, the event went off without a hitch, and that moves the needle even further towards our goal of being able to reopen the library in a limited capacity. Hopefully we've got a target date for this board only, because it's not public knowledge, for the end of this month. And we're currently completing the building preps and working with staff to solicit feedback on additional things we need to do to get the library ready, trainings that we've been providing staff. We've identified a target date, as I mentioned, the end of this month, and working with the union leadership to identify additional safety protocols and measures that we can put into place to mitigate the risk, and recognition that, you know, we can't 100% eliminate the risk, but we're going to do everything in our power to mitigate it, continue to follow guidelines from our emergency management division and also the county and the state as far as how we can reopen in a way to mitigate risk. So things are moving ahead, and I hope that we'll be able to meet our target date, and I will keep this board apprised of our progress on doing that. Meanwhile, the curbside service continues to happen both by appointment and walk-ups at both locations. We were up to 6 days a week now. I don't know if I reported this, but we recently scheduled our 15,000th appointment since June. So it's a remarkable number, and the staff have just done a great job. There's a lot of labor that goes into the curbside service, everything from processing the hold to checking the item out, putting it on the shelf. We're retrieving it from the shelf, checking it out, putting it on the hold shelf, to retrieving it from the hold shelf, bundling it up, and bringing it out to the curb. So there's an awful lot of labor that goes into making this happen, and staff have done a great job. And our curbside service, looking at the volume of items that have been circulating, is in fact the busiest in the county. And so that should come as no surprise. But what with the inclement weather coming, we're looking to scale that back to the point where it's appointments only. And so we're slowly moving in that direction, scaling back the hours now that the daylight hours are ending sooner, in an interest to protect both staff and patrons. So we're slowly scaling back that service and the hours of operation. One more reason why we're hoping to reopen the facility to the public in a limited capacity, to take some of the pressure off of the curbside and also provide more opportunities for residents to gain access to materials that they desire. We're also soliciting input in our standing committees. Our safety committee, incident response committee, and the labor management committee are also providing valuable feedback, along with focus groups we held a couple weeks ago and a staff survey that we conducted in last month. Let's see. The name of the service, the reopening of the library in a limited capacity, is being referred to as Grab and Go. It's the new Grab and Go, not to be confused with the Grab and Go collection of books outside of the library, but the intent was in providing or naming it thusly was to encourage residents in this phase of the reopening to sort of get in and get out, and with a limit of a 30-minute duration. And that way we can move people more effectively in and out of the building and provide more of an opportunity for more residents to take advantage of it, since we'll be limiting the number of folks who can be in the building at a time. And then on to another topic, awards and certifications. This past Tuesday, the Beaverton School District presented their annual WE Award to the Beaverton City Library, along with several other WCSLIS member libraries, in recognition of our partnership with the school district to provide more than 30,000 library cards to Beaverton School District students last year. Beaverton City Library was the lead library in that initiative, which was 3 years in the making. And the school district acknowledged in presenting the award that there were more than 60 public library staff who participated in this project. There's also a video. See if I can put that in the chat box for those members of the board who might be interested in watching that. Future date. So I just popped that in the chat box, so you're welcome to copy and paste that and watch that video about the project at your leisure. And then also a shout out goes to Jennifer Johnson, our volunteer services manager, who recently passed the certified volunteer administrator exam and is now a certified volunteer administrator, having completed a year-long program of study culminating in the passage of the exam. That said, Jennifer is actually transitioning out of that position on a temporary basis and into a newly hired position as the city's diversity, equity, and inclusion project manager. And in that capacity, she will be assisting the city department heads on advancing the work of diversity, equity, inclusion internally for the organization. So anticipate that she'll be serving in that capacity for about a 6 to 12 month period. And we are working with the HR department to backfill that position on a temporary basis while Jennifer is serving in her new capacity. Work on the study rooms, build out of the study room continues. We recently had 3 contractors on site to scope out the nature of the work, and now awaiting their submissions, their bids, prior to selecting a contractor with whom the city will negotiate, sign a contract, and then actual construction work can begin, which we're hoping will happen either later this fall or early this winter. Then as of today, there is a work crew, couple work crews actually on site, beginning work on updates to the library's HVAC system, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, to update the controls so that for better management and control of the HVAC system. And that will be approximately a 2-week process and will again provide better control of the HVAC system. We also will be converting the library drinking fountain in the lobby to a water bottle filling station, touchless water bottle filling station. Facilities will be taking the lead on that. No ETA as yet as to when that will happen, but I will keep the board apprised as more information becomes available. And with that concludes the director's report for this month, and I will be happy to take any questions.
No questions? Well, I think I was going to add, Glenn was talking about how labor intensive it is doing the curbside service. And if you think about it, when you go in, a lot of the times you're picking out your own books as opposed to staff going to the shelves and getting them, or somebody putting them on the hold shelf, which might be volunteers, but they're not able to be in the building now either, for the most part. And then you might check them out yourself on a self-service machine. And so staff is having to do all of that we would be normally doing most or all of by self-service.
Oh, John, there is one more thing I would like to add, if I may, and that is we got some patron feedback very recently that I'd like to share with this board if there's time permitting.
Sure.
So the feedback came in the form of kudos from Susan Swartwood, who is one of our volunteers, who is a emeritus professor of English at a school, I think Southwest Missouri State, if I'm not mistaken. And she has been facilitating our Pacific Wonderland Poets group since, well, probably a year now at least. And members of that group recently submitted their feedback and praise of one of our staff members, Beth Gilbert, who is the staff liaison and helps coordinate that group. And I'd like to read what some of the feedback that we received from the participants in this poetry group. The first of which reads, I just attended a workshop highlighting the challenge of fostering meaningful group interaction during a Zoom call. I immediately thought of our shining poetry group facilitator, Beth. She has offered such a gift during these months of isolation. Her willingness to be our host has given us an invaluable space in which we might gather and grow. Beth's love of poetry and willingness to participate fully with her own writing has added a beautiful layer of warmth and depth to our meetings. Here's another. Dear Glenn, first of all, let me express my gratitude for the Beaverton Library, your staff and programs. About a year ago, I started attending the Pacific Wonderland Poetry Group. Shortly thereafter, as our world shut down and even the library closed, gasp, the group became a lifeline to me and the other participants. As we sheltered in place, we had a forum to express ourselves in a safe and supportive environment. Please know that was possible because of the extraordinary support of Beth Gilbert. When we voted to increase the frequency of our meeting, she happily accommodated that. Soon she became more than a Zoom monitor. She became a valued commentator, and eventually an active poet as well. She's been there to be sure we were able to get together, and we felt that we had a clear pathway to understanding the new protocols as the library began to resume service. We literally could not have kept meeting without Beth. Thank you for the caring, friendly attitude of your staff that she exemplifies. A couple more if time permits.
Yes.
For 1 year, Beth has been facilitating our poetry group by Zoom for more than half a year. Beth has mindfully been opening Zoom, staying with us, solving video problems any of us might have. Her value to us in facilitating connections in an uncertain time. Beth is so much more than a technical guru. She's part of the center that holds us together. She contributes to our poetic musings and contributes to our musings on life in this time. She is a positive role model. Beth brings in her own beautiful poetry to share. She is a part of us. Two more. Beth is an exceptional adult services librarian. She has pioneered several programs ranging from one group for people with developmental challenges and their caregivers to an all ages program for cross-generational discussions. She's accomplished all of this while continuing her outstanding work with two literary groups, the Tuesday Writing Group and the Pacific Wonderland Poets. Beth has a kind heart and openly engages others. She constantly seeks opportunities to connect with the community. Moreover, Beth quickly responds to any missing pieces, bringing our city's community closer together so that the downtown Beaverton Library and the city fulfill their mission. From my own perspective, Beth is a wonderful advocate for Beaverton's literary community and a fine writer in her own right. It's a pleasure to work with her both behind the scenes and within Pacific Wonderland Poets Workshop. Thank you again for hiring Beth. She's a rock star. Lastly, Beth Gilbert began a year ago as library liaison for our poetry writing workshop. She arranged all of our meeting rooms, publicized the group, and helped us in any way we asked. When the library closed, she facilitated our group on Zoom, and she has become a writing contributing member of the group besides her working as liaison, arranging meetings and publicizing the group. She also keeps us updated on all events and new services at the library. That's the substantial foundation of her work. What is less measurable is how affirmatively she has influenced us. She is always timely and very reliable, making herself available even before the regular meeting starts for questions and general conversation. She's friendly and equitable. Her comments on her writing have been valuable and considerate, contributing to continued writing rather than being negative or discouraging in any way that would halter a writer's progress. She's uplifting and generous and appropriate. And the appropriate phrase is wise beyond her years. We are so very fortunate to have her not only as an excellent liaison, but as part of our group. Thanks for making it possible for Beth to work with us through good times and challenges. We love and value her.
Wow, all those endorsements, and she's not even running for office. And I'll add one too. Beth also co-facilitates the Deaf Cafe and Age Cafe events and does a very good job with those as well. So, whole lot of commendations tonight. That's wonderful. The last thing I wanted to do tonight is have a discussion about what board education topics you'd like to have in the coming months. And I just am thinking in several general areas, but anything that you want to discuss is fine. It could be the Beaverton Library, any specific topics, and we've pretty much, I think, covered everything that you need to know with the tour and our regular meetings and our increased understanding of the budget and the budget process. But if there are other topics you'd like to get into, bring that up. If there are national library topics you'd like to discuss, what's going on with the ALA, the American Library Association, good stuff to know. I know one thing that's changed in the nearly 40 years since I worked in libraries is there's a whole lot of library activism. That might be something interesting to explore. Another area you might want to get into is local government and jurisdictions. Beaverton is, if not unique, unusual in the ways in which we are not a full service city. If there's aspects of that you don't understand or would like to learn more about, that's something we can discuss pretty easily. And a related area might be taxes. I know half the people in Beaverton live in apartments, half live in houses. Just a show of hands, how many of you are renters? So, just two of you, and the rest of you own homes, or I'm assuming, yes. Homeowners? Anybody awake? Okay. So, you've seen, those of you who are homeowners know what's on the property tax statements. You have some idea of who you're paying taxes to, possibly even why, but that's something else we can discuss if there's anything there you'd like to know more about. So I'm opening it up to everyone.
I just
Where
wanted
should
to
we go next?
I just wanted to bring up, I wasn't sure if you guys were aware, but there was a meeting a couple of weeks ago. They've decided to turn the community center directly across the street from the main library into affordable housing. So apparently within the next couple of years, they're going to start bulldozing and building there. I only know because I'm in the community garden in that plot. So they told us that next year was the last year we would be able to use that before they start making those changes. So that might be good. I mean, we have a lot of new patrons right across the street from the library.
You know, in the short run, a lot of construction adding noise.
Yeah, true.
I'm happy to hear like library will be getting a lot of patrons, but very sad to hear that community garden won't be there.
I know, I'm so sad. I
have a look at the garden.
I just like spent so much money and got my plot all nice and pretty, but I mean, thankfully I can take down the raised beds and stuff that I installed, but I was also sad about that.
Yeah, I have seen tall grown tomato plants and sunflower plants. Like if you see the building, that definitely I'll be missing that view.
Yeah. I think I got about 50 pounds of tomatoes this year. It was great.
Oh,
That's nice. John, I like to vote for national libraries and taxes. And then maybe City of Beaverton, we can learn about it.
okay. Anybody else?
Of course, we are
Anything
learning
specific?
about
Anything you?
Beaverton
Go ahead, Sarah.
Library by Glenn's report every month. So I'm just voting for the National Library.
Yeah. And I think there are so many things to know about. We still have some of those educational materials through the state that you can access. Ask Glenn for a link, or ask Kristin perhaps if you need one. But those materials are available to board members, and you can learn a lot. And they're mostly about being a board member, but learn a lot about how libraries operate as well if there are things you would like to know. Any other specifics? Anything you always wondered? How do they do that? Why do they do that? Anything of that nature?
I've always been interested, and actually my thesis is touching on this, is the relationship.
I can't hear you, Kathleen.
Oh, goodness. I've always been interested, and my thesis is about this, is the relationship between the community and the library through internet. So internet access to community through libraries. Because it's always been really interesting how there are internet stations in the library, and then it's kind of become the job of the library to provide internet to people. We can even see that through our library, through the Wi-Fi hotspots. So I thought that's a very interesting connection. That's always been of interest to me.
I think you could make a great presentation on that if it wouldn't be too much trouble.
Not at all.
And as something, and I think considering how long it's been relatively since, say, Glenn's been to library school, or most of our librarians have been, there's so many things that none of the rest of us do. Nobody on the staff knows. And I think that would be really interesting to learn about, maybe what some of those new trends are, new technologies.
I will go through all of my notes. I will be more than happy.
And we'll look at that sometime early next year, because one of the proposed new alternates is also a recent library school graduate. So I think that might be a really interesting topic to get into a little bit early next year. I don't know, do we have any policies coming up soon? Glenn?
Not off the top of my head, John, but I'll make a note to look into that and get back to the board.
And last month, Brad asked, now I forgot, was it, you were interested in seeing a video of, was it the maker room, or the study rooms, or both?
Yeah, exactly.
I would also love that.
Okay.
And I don't think it has to be anything fancy. I think probably somebody could do a, even a cell phone video might be pretty adequate for that.
Okay. Thank you for the reminder. I will follow up, and we will get one together in the near future, and then share the link with the board via email.
Cool.
I did look inside today. It's still under construction a lot.
Well,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you very well.
I did look inside that room today, but there's still work being done, it looks like.
Yeah, so Andrew, what you're seeing is it's being staged for some storage and other purposes, because we blocked off that area where the computers are, including the makerspace, in preparation for opening the building to the public. So technically the makerspace has actually been completed. But now, because we're prepping the building to have residents come back inside, we're having to use some of the spaces that are off limits for temporary storage. So that said, now that you mention it, it may impact our ability to provide a video because in order to do that, we might have to wait until the room is set back up in the way that it's meant to be. So I apologize for that, but there may be a bit of a delay in that. However, the good news is once we open to the public, you can see inside, but not really, because that area will be blocked off. If you got a good set of eyes or a good pair of glasses, you can kind of see in through there, but it may be a little while before we're able to get a video showing the space in the layout in which it's designed to be. So I apologize for that.
And I'm guessing probably we can't open the maker room to the public really until the pandemic is over, or we've reached a high level of safety.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, according to the county's metric, I think we could only safely have, was it 2 or maybe 3 people in that space at a time. So it didn't make sense. Plus, it's adjacent to the computers, which at least in this phase of the reopening, we want to have off limits to the public, because the computer access will continue to happen in the Kathy Stanton room for the foreseeable future. So as a result, we've actually barricaded that entire area off using furniture so that, you can't even get back there at this point.
Again, speaking of the internet, are the hotspot ready for the community?
So not quite, Sarah, but thank you for asking. We've set up an account, created an account with TechSoup, which is the library technology organization that provides the Wi-Fi hotspots in conjunction with an internet service provider, et cetera, and a discounted rate. So that was the first step. So we've got that established. And then the next step is to actually go in and make the purchase. And they, from what I understand, they basically sell them in groups of 11. So some other libraries in the county and the cooperative have purchased 11 Wi-Fi spots. We're looking to double that. So our initial purchase will be 22. And hopefully that will be happening sometime later this month. But I'll keep the board up to date.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Anything new with the space planning?
Well, let's see, apart from the study rooms, which I mentioned as part of the director's report, because that's part of the space plan. There was a 4th study room that was added because the initial space plan just had called out for 3, but we added a 4th in the mystery alcove, which would be available for use by the social worker under contract through Community Action when she needs space to meet privately with a client. So we're doing double duty as a study room and as a private office space for the social worker. And then the other aspect of the space plan, much of that work, as you can imagine, is placed on hold as a result of the pandemic. But the good news is that if the sale of the Book Corner property, which is owned by the city, goes through, all of the proceeds of that would land in the library's trust fund. And apart from what we need to expend to fix up the library to accommodate the Friends, as we described earlier, the balance of that would technically be available for operationalizing and building out other portions of the space plan if we so choose, which is nice because the board may be aware that there were no funds identified for building out the remaining part of the space plan, apart from what we could put in the budget little by little each year. So that would be a nice chunk of change because the Book Corner property was assessed last December at $435,000. And the rough estimate to prepare the library for the Friends would be around maximum $145,000. So that leaves about $300,000 to apply for other parts of the space plan.
Wow. Okay, any other questions for Glenn or any other topics anybody's thought of in the meantime? Great. Next month, I'm sure nobody wants to hear this word for a while, but we have our own elections, our board officer elections for 2021. Our meeting will be, looks like December 9th. Is that right, Kristin?
12th. Oh,
Okay.
no, it should be the 9th. Sorry,
That's what I said.
I was confused. I thought I saw an email with the 12th, but that was today.
It's the
Oh.
9th. It's the December 9th, 12/9 or 9/12. So that could be it.
Okay, so I guess we'll see everybody next month. There being no additional business to discuss tonight, I'll call the meeting adjourned at 7:24 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Great to have full attendance again.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you,
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, John. Thanks, Kristin.
Good night. Good to see your baby, Kathleen.
Oh.
Mm.
Thanks.
Done.